Is Lomachenko back? I watched Richard Kambosos versus Lomachenko last night, and it was truly a great card from top to bottom. Keyshawn Davis, up and coming prospect, handled his business in emphatic fashion with a beautiful body shot knockout. You had Xander Zayas, who is another gold star, blue chip, whatever you say, prospect, handle his business with a devastating knockout. Then you had Jared Anderson, who is another highly touted prospect in the heavyweight division. Fantastic knockout. But it all came down to and led up to this moment. If Lomachenko truly was back, and who would have the best performance to entice George Kambosos, the undisputed world champion at 135 pounds, to rumble with them? You saw Devin Haney last week. You saw Gervonta Tank Davis last week, and then you saw the upset of Teofimo Lopez to George Kambosos. Loma had all eyes on him and very high expectations. Now, Loma did what Loma does. He fought a very formidable Richard Kambosos. You saw Kambosos trying to back Loma up because even in this fight, Loma doesn't really throw that much going backwards. He predominantly generates offense on the front foot and puts pressure with punches and bunches. Kambosos tried his best to neutralize Loma's get to the right angle, but he couldn't. I thought the power of Kambosos would maybe bother Lomachenko, and there were moments where right hands would land to the body, right hands would land to the head, and even a hook landed that kind of shocked Loma. But look, Loma has a very good chin. Loma looked all class. At certain points, Richard Kambosos would shell up and he would just eat punches unanswered, couldn't return anything. Loma's back, right? He ends up dropping Kambosos 2 times, severely hurts him, and at one point even gestures to the corner like, oh, you're going to let this continue. And it just seemed like a dominant performance. Then Richard Kambosos comes out the next few rounds and survives the full 12. Loma's back. Loma's back. Oh, it was his shoulder the whole time. That's why he lost to Lopez. No, that's not the case. Loma still has the same deficiencies that you saw before. He doesn't fight on the back foot, and Lopez can still figure out what he's trying to do and won't be lost if they were to square off again. But Lopez lost. This has nothing to do with that. Styles make fights. If you don't recall, Lopez knocked out Richard Kambosos in 2. Loma went 12 with him. He dropped him, could have stopped him, but he didn't. But Loma, fantastic performance. I think Loma is a very good fighter, and I think, truthfully, he'll beat the dog shit out of George Kambosos. I think Devin Haney would beat George Kambosos. I think Gervonta Davis would beat George Kambosos, and I think Teofimo Lopez would beat George Kambosos. But Loma is back to being himself. You can see the confidence. You can see the aura generating, and you could see that the fans are back after him. I kept hearing about the shoulder, Loma shoulder, Loma shoulder. They got to cut the shoulder bullshit, because if you're going to buy the Loma excuse, then you have to buy Teo's excuse. I'm not buying Teo's excuse, and I'm not buying Loma's excuse. You go in the ring, you fight. It is what it is. You got to take what comes with it, and you move on. I think Loma looked great. I think Loma deserves the fight at George Kambosos. I think it makes perfect sense. However, it's all coming down to George Kambosos because he's enjoying his spot in the spotlight. He's enjoying his time in the sun. Lights are all on George, and he earned it. I mean, you shock Teofimo Lopez, you take all the belts. Now the ball's in your court, and it has to make sense for you. However, I think he is going to take the Loma fight. I think what makes it interesting is George Kambosos seems like somebody that likes to challenge himself, and he wants to challenge himself against one of the best in the world, because say what you want, Lomachenko lost to Lopez, Lopez lost to Kambosos. Those two are the top of the top. If George Kambosos beats Loma and Teo, now you're looking at somebody that truthfully is the best in the division. I mean, he has the most belts, but belts really, if you really look at skills, just because you have more belts doesn't mean that you're better. Okay. Just keep that in mind. I think Lomachenko And George Kambosos would be big in Australia. I think the Australians would show out. I think it would actually do pretty well on pay-per-view. I don't think Devin Haney could sell as well as Lomachenko over in Australia. I don't think Mayweather's going to want that fight, even though it makes sense. Gervonta is the WBA mandatory for George Kambosos. And truthfully, that's a pay-per-view fight. It'll be a pay-per-view fight over there. I just don't think Gervonta Davis is going to go to Australia. And that's more of a Mayweather thing. I think Gervonta would do whatever it takes to fight anyone, anywhere, because I think he has the skills to beat anybody any day. But I don't think he's going to go out there. So I think Lomachenko is going to get the fight. I think that's the fight people want to see. ESPN has put up tremendous shows in Australia before, and I don't see why this fight couldn't take place. What I would see, truthfully, very fitting, is Loma goes, fights Kambosos, wins, then I'm sure George probably will have a rematch clause. I don't know. If I were him, I would, but I feel Loma's gonna go fight Kambosos, beat him, have all the belts, and then he's gonna fight Teofimo Lopez probably in his last fight. Ride off into the sunset, either get revenge on Teo, have all the belts, and then at that point, there's really nothing much else to do. And that's my prognostication. But I would love to see that rematch with Teo and Loma. Now it makes more sense just in case he doesn't get the Kambosos fight. But I don't think Devin and George are really box office. I know they're going to say, oh, it's for real, undisputed, but nobody wants to see that fight, in my opinion. I don't really want to see Devin and George. I think Devin wins, and I think Devin will be safe doing what Devin does. He never really looks dominant in his performances, especially against the better guys. Like, yeah, he beat JoJo, but it wasn't like he beat the shit out of JoJo or stopped JoJo. He won a nice, comfortable points decision. JoJo was just outgunned, in my opinion. But yeah, I think Loma, George Kambosos, Loma is back to being Loma, right? But he also had an opponent, let's be honest, Richard Comey, powerful guy, but not the most angular, most fluidity in his feet kind of fighter. He was shelling up at times, and Andre Rozier, I don't know how this guy just keeps getting marquee fights. He never wins. He gives horrible instructions. And then, like, you let Richard Comey. One thing I didn't like was Loma was gesturing to the corner. Oh, stop the fight, stop the fight. At that point, you can't stop the fight, because if I'm in that corner, I'm like, what the fuck is this guy doing? You have pride, you're a fighter, you have power. You're not just going to let some other guy tell you, hey, I think you should stop the fight. The ref should stop the fight. The corner should stop the fight. But Lomachenko, stay in your lane, man. Like, don't try to postulate and make it seem like you're some kind, like you're euthanizing Richard Comey. Fight, man. It's a fight. And Comey has power. You never know. Look at Deontay Wilder. He got up, hurt Tyson Fury 2 times. Everyone thought it was over. So don't do that. I really think that was a pompous move, and I don't think he's nice. I think it's quite the opposite for doing that. Still have COVID. Shit. Yeah, I don't. What bothers me about Andre Rozier is, like, you put him back out there. You could have stopped the fight after he took punishment. And then in the corner, you're like, be smart, be smart. If you were going to be smart, stop the fight. Your man is down. Either go out on your shield or stop the fight. I respect both, because at the end of the day, it's your fighter. And Richard Comey is his own man, and he's his own gladiator. He has pride. You can choose to whatever you do. I'm never going to tell any man how to live his life, but why put him out there if you're going to tell him to be safe and not take chances? I don't know. It just doesn't. Andre Rozier, just between Sergey Derevchenko, between Richard Comey, between Edgar Berlanga looking like shit in his last fight, I think it's just time for people to just move on. Daniel Jacobs leaving him. He always falters in the biggest moments. But yeah, Lomachenko, bravo, good performance, kind of tailor made for you to put on a show, and that's what it was. You earned your shot, man. Go get it. That's the episode for today. Let me know what you guys think.